Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. And a couple of videos ago I made a video talking about the future of Saw at Thorpe Park Resort, and since you guys did really enjoy that video, I kind of want to bring up another topic in a similar format in the terms of the Alton Towers Dungeons. Now obviously when the Alton Towers Dungeons did open last year at Alton Towers Resort, a lot of people were kind of sceptical on whether or not this attraction would last. Obviously with it being an upcharge attraction, and with Alton Towers already charging enough for people to go in, obviously people were kind of worried how it would perform under the pressure of like a shift of focus, because obviously this year we have the World of David Walliams opening at Alton Towers, and obviously everyone's focus is now going to be on that, not on the Alton Towers Dungeons, and a lot of people are kind of worried whether or not this would actually last. So in today's video I'm actually going to be talking about what I think could potentially happen to the Alton Towers Dungeons, and I'm going to be kind of splitting it up into two different segments. The first segment will be about what Alton Towers would kind of do if they weren't serious about keeping the Alton Towers Dungeons and kind of tried to keep it as a semi kind of temporary thing, and the other segment will be about what if Alton Towers did decide to keep it and are really serious on keeping this in a serious way, potentially what they could add to it. Now obviously if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. It does let me know that you guys are liking this kind of content. So yeah, with all that said, let's get right into the video. Okay, so if Alton Towers aren't really serious on keeping the Alton Towers Dungeons, there are many things we do actually have to take into account. Now obviously for the 2020 season, Alton Towers is introducing the World of David Walliams that will actually be located literally just opposite from the Alton Towers Dungeons. And when I first heard about this, I was kind of a little bit worried, because obviously would this create kind of like a really weird contrast between the two areas, but obviously I'm going to have to go and see that myself to actually make a proper judgment on that. However, obviously, you know, when this was first announced and when the David Walliams World was first announced, a lot of people were kind of disappointed that Alton Towers didn't hold off with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and actually turn that into a David Walliams attraction, because obviously the boat system within there is still very much functioning. Obviously if you've been on the Alton Towers dungeon, you will know that, you know, it is an actual part of the attraction, so it's not like the ride system was broken. They could have easily made this into a David Walliams attraction, and I think this would have really worked. So when I was first thinking about making this video, this was one of the first things that did actually pop to my mind, a potential David Walliams expansion if the new area does go down well very much this season. Now obviously because it's a new area, Alton Towers kind of want to just test the waters on different attractions they can make in there. Obviously we saw a similar thing happen with CBeebies Land. Obviously we saw it open, I actually don't know when it opened, but we did see it open in a couple of years after. We did see some minor small additions to the area after, you know, it had become a huge success. So potentially we could be seeing something like this happen. Potentially we could see the World of David Walliams kind of expanding outwards, out of the, you know, initial area and into somewhere like Burger Kitchen and kind of, you know, the Alton Towers dungeon, potentially kind of consume that into the area, obviously if it does do very well. The history before obviously the Alton Towers dungeon was actually constructed, obviously this did actually used to be Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and before that obviously it was Toyland Tours. So this ride system was initially based on a kids ride and would actually, you know, be very fitting for something like a storybook, plainly because obviously when we had the addition of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that would be very similar to the kind of experience I reckon you'll be getting within the World of David Walliams, but obviously it would be a little bit more updated. And I think if Alton Towers did decide to kind of expand this area, there is a lot of potential within places like Burger Kitchen and the Alton Towers Dungeons to create an even more immersive experience. Now when you think about it, Burger Kitchen could pretty much just stay the exact same, just add a little bit more theming around it and it would kind of work. But obviously with the Alton Towers Dungeons there is so much potential within there for a potential ride. Obviously there's plenty of space in there for queue line. They've actually got the ride system itself, they've got the exit, there's so much they could work on for this. It's absolutely gobsmacking. Now obviously we do have to take into the account whether or not obviously the Alton Towers Dungeons will be popular this year, and we'll have to kind of find that out as the year goes on, because I reckon because the shift now is always on the David Walliams attractions, a lot of people won't be focusing on the Alton Towers Dungeons as much as they did last year. However, I could be very wrong, and this could drastically change. But obviously, with, you know, it being an upcharge attraction and with it being a very you know, heavy actor-led experience, Alton Towers do have to pay the actors within there, and that's mainly where the income from the Alton Towers dungeon does go. It obviously goes to paying the actors, and obviously there is a small amount that does go to Alton Towers as well. So, you know, if they do see these kind of numbers dwindling and they're struggling to pay these actors, you know, it's not really worth keeping it up. And that is pretty much going to segue into my next statement for Alton Towers Dungeon. Now, the main comparison I can kind of see to the Alton Towers Dungeon situation is actually Saw Alive over at Thorpe Park Resort. Obviously, for the first year of it operating, it was actually an attraction that was open throughout the year. But obviously, as time went on, they couldn't keep paying the actors. They couldn't keep it up, so they kind of sidelined it for an attraction for kind of Fright Night. So could we potentially be seeing a similar thing here? Obviously, Alton Towers will be getting income from this to pay the actors, but it's, you know, like I said, if the numbers do dwindle, it's going to be just as hard to keep it up as obviously Saw Alive was. So, obviously, with most of Alton Towers attractions at Scarefest every year being upcharge attractions, I do think that the Alton Towers Dungeons could fit in as a little bit of an extra paid attraction, maybe costing a tiny bit more than the general kind of attraction they do have at Scarefest, and I think it would fit in very, very well. And obviously, you know, it wouldn't really bother me at all because, you know, a lot of people during the summer aren't really interested in, you know, going within the Alton Towers Dungeon. It's kind of a similar situation for me to Darren Brown's Ghost Train. Obviously, the first time I do it a season, I really enjoy it, but then I know what's coming, I know what it's about, and then I never touch it again. And obviously, because I rarely go to Alton Towers, each trip I go to Alton Towers, I will most likely do it, but that is only because I'll only get to do it about once or twice within the year. So it's kind of a very different experience for me than for what it is for people who go to Towers a lot. So if any of you out there do go to Towers a lot and do know this a lot better than me, definitely let me know what your thoughts are on whether or not you would kind of like to see it, you know, be kind of sidelined for Scarefest, because obviously that is the time of the year when a lot of people do want to be scared, and, you know, it would fit perfectly. So yeah, that's kind of the most likely option I think that could happen, but obviously the World of David Williams attraction could be very, very nice as well. Okay, so moving into the next segment of the video then, and this will be about whether Alton Towers are serious about keeping this attraction. Now, there are many things Alton Towers could do with this, especially taking inspiration from all of the dungeons around the UK, especially the London dungeons in particular. And then when I was thinking about this video, I did have a couple of ideas about what Alton Towers could do to kind of bring the Alton Towers dungeon back into the limelight. Now, obviously, because the Alton Towers Dungeon is right next to the Burger King, or the Burger Kitchen. Why did I say Burger King? That's really odd. But obviously, because it is right next to Burger Kitchen, a lot of the dungeons around the UK are very, very famous for having the tavern. Now, the tavern's kind of a little kind of chilling space for the dungeons around the UK. It's kind of like themed to, well, a tavern. And obviously, it does fit very well within the theming. And obviously, this is something that, you know, is pushing forward with a lot of the dungeons. And obviously, when you think about it, the Alton Towers Dungeon itself, it's kind of just the backbone of what most of the dungeon attractions are around the UK and also around the world. Because obviously a lot of the dungeon attractions around the world and that do have a lot of other stuff kind of layered on top of it. But because it's kind of just an attraction within the theme park, Alton Towers just kind of decided to go for kind of just like the initial skeleton of a Alton Towers dungeon kind of experience that they wanted to kind of create. Now obviously adding the tavern would be quite a big investment. And I think Alton Towers would have to be extremely serious about keeping it if they were to do this. And as well as that, it kind of goes for my next theory as well, potentially adding shows, because obviously, you know, a lot of the dungeons out there do have shows, and I know particularly the York dungeon is putting on a show at the moment, you know, and I kind of feel like if they were to do that, they would kind of have it in as an event during the season. Obviously, because we haven't seen any events for the Alton Towers Dungeon this season, it kind of hints me that maybe they're just going to kind of just leave it alone this season. Potentially, maybe bring in some kind of seasonal kind of shows for it. Could really kind of up the ante for the hype and get a lot more people excited for, you know, the ride itself. Because obviously, like I said, if not many people are going there, Alton Towers can't pay the actors and it's not really worth sustaining it. So if they were to create events and kind of create hype again for it, it could potentially save the attraction. And that's kind of goes the same with the tavern. Having the tavern as kind of just like an open restaurant anyone can go in would really kind of hype up the attraction more than it already is and kind of try and save it. But like I said, this is all judging on whether or not Alton Towers are serious about keeping it. Guys, to do it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like I said, if you guys know more about this than I do and go to Alton Towers a lot more, definitely leave your thoughts down below on what you think could happen to the Alton Towers Dungeon. Me personally, I'd love to have it at the park still, you know. I really enjoyed it for what it was. For the money I paid for it, it was a very, very good experience. And I hope they don't get rid of it. But like I said, if the numbers do dwindle, it is getting very, very likely. So yeah, definitely let me know your ideas down in the comments below, and yeah, I will see you guys later.